All right, I got my glasses. So I've been reading from some of my older books. This is kind of a homage to Robert Frost, A Swinger of Birches. And I have a quote here. One could do worse than be a swinger of birches. Like Frost's swinger of birches, I grew up far from town, played alone in the redwood forests, in the dry, dusty fire roads on Mount Tamalpais, marveled at the fog snaking up the valleys, hot, sweaty skin refreshed by cool. It maybe made me a nature poet, and also as consequence, a little out of step with the world. Now when busy life envelops me, I want to return to those dusty roads, smell the pristine sage, be at peace in the quiet. Yet I know it wasn't all so pleasant. Loneliness, desires, dissatisfactions were then as now. I had no birches to swing on, but I know about going up and down. I learned to swing so high I'm nearly in heaven, and I accept coming back, landing in this uncertainty. Yet sometimes I see it's all in the swinging. Yes, it's good to be a swinger of birches, the coming and going, seeing it's all about appreciating the ride. Barbara, you must appreciate that one about Mount Tamalpais. That's one of her favorite places. It's not a huge mountain, but it's a mountain near us. Which, an Indian name, Tamalpais. I don't think I've ever read this one. I guess it's apropos. It's tax forms. To save paper, I've been writing poems on the backs of old tax forms. Barbara says, love Mount Tam. Tax forms. To save paper, I've been writing poems on the backs of old tax forms. This seems apt. One side to feed the body, one side to feed the soul. Not the strangest company, these two. Though I like the loafing of Whitman, one must survive in this world. And yes, it takes strength to write a good poem, too. The trouble is one of these brothers is a bully. We know deep down bullies are scared. If he can learn to share, if he can finally see something is missing, then the spark of knowing and the resolve of doing may come together and make a steady flame. Together they can climb the mountain and find the courage to love, to live, to long for, to remember. And here's like a little haiku here. Pears. The pears blushing red lean down the slender branches within my reach. Haven't seen these poems in a while. Muffin top. Peeling the paper down, I look at the accordion shape left on the muffin. The muffin had no choice but to assume this shape. My belly is like the muffin top, flowing over its containment. Friends tell me it's unhealthy, but isn't it the tastiest part of the muffin? When I was younger, I was the uncooked dough. I was free and limber, I could hang upside down in trees. In school, I learned to sit still, stiffly straight. Later, in confusing growing up, I slouched, feeling shy, insecure. Society put ideas on my body: neckties, suit jackets, tight shoes, military posture. Girls learned to wear bras, girdles. All the time our natural movements were getting lost. And what of the mind? Body and mind are connected. It got it got more rigid too, more removed from natural empathy. It learned to rationalize bestial things. I've lost interest in the proper posture. I want to swing in trees again, roll around unseemly on the ground, find my natural self again, the one who can waste time watching the birds and quit worrying about the bottom line, recapture the wisdom of natural movement and natural thought and feeling. I want to be like a scone, spreading out wherever it needs, to flow out into existence and find my real self.
Nice.
Well, let's see, it's enough of my poems. Let's read yours, Glenda. This is Glenda's poem for the week. It's called Conversations. I watch for the trees to don their green dress. Another season whispers its imminent arrival. I wonder if the birds will still sing their soft songs and dance amongst my wind chimes that tinkle in time. With how many more seasons will I have a conversation? How many more mornings will I awake to greet the sweet madness of spring that murmurs my name? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? A refrain softly spoken. I struggle to speak, wrapped in the gossamer wings of my thoughts. I hear the colors and taste the songs of promised beginnings lost in the fog, and ponder the time left behind and ahead, where daylight comes darkling and night is alive, with memories that shine through the daffodils' blooms. And will there be more, or is the end not too far? From wind-blown lost shadows full of laughter and tears, or will they be the last of the memories made, soft in the shadows, asleep in the grass, conversations still heard, but answers forgotten? For now it's the green dress of spring I await, to nudge my hand gently, no promises made. Lovely as usual. I like that no promises made at the end. There's a little zing to it.
That's what life is. No promises made.
Yeah. We're not promised tomorrow, are we?
Right.
Although we have to live like it is.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I've been thinking along those lines too. The poem I was trying to write had something to do with things rotting, like fruit and bread.
Oh my goodness.
I couldn't.
I don't feel like a rotten fruit, so
Well,
I'm not that far gone yet.
it's okay if it feeds the seed within.
Yeah, that's true.
Anyway, maybe it's just as well I didn't write that poem. Well, let's see. Read a few more poems from other persons. There's Gary Snyder. Cormorants. Cormorant is a big kind of black seabird common out here. Probably don't have them in Indiana.
Nope, we don't.
Dropping down rock ledges toward the breakers. Wait a minute. Dropping down rock ledges toward the breakers, see a long, flat point spiked with upright black cormorants and a few gulls, gray and white. Rocks dabbed with threads and dribbles of bird white. White writing like Mark Tobey did, drawn in loops and splatters, lime-rich droppings pointing back to the fishy waves. Some rocks more decorated than others. A dark stink as the breeze rises, whiffs of ammonia, stabs you in the back brain. The only place worse once was on a fishing boat in the Gulf of Alaska. Came alongside sea lion rocks, and the whole thing blew in our face and whipped us with awful, gassy blast. Not awful, OFFAL. Each bird scholar has its own stone chair and long, full streaks below. Some rocks are unoccupied, unwritten. Pelicans flap slowly by. Cormorants fly clumsy, taking off from the water, drag their toes in the waves, flap, 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 leaving scratch lines in the froth until they get just barely up and never fly much higher. Cormorants on the cliff launch out and fly downward till they drag their toes and then gain height again. Underwater they are fast as jets and full of grace. That's all like written like regular like novel writing. And then the next part is written more like a poem. Toes riding in water, rocks drawn with dribbles, scat incense in the wind. Cormorants open their thin black wings, talk about art, lecture the clouds of tiny fish.
That's basically a poem about bird poop.
Yep, it is. It's a whole poem about bird shit. Well, maybe my rotten fruit poem would have been okay. It would have been
Yeah,
it would have been in sync.
yeah, would have been better than that. But
Yes.
it says a lot that you can actually write a poem about bird poop. I mean, that takes talent.
Yeah. Well, off the Pacific coast here, most of the rocks are kind of white from so
Hmm.
many years of birds pooping on them. Let's read one more of Gary. To go. Now here's the same thing. He's written a paragraph in like regular. What do you call that? Not poetry writing, just regular writing, like a paragraph writing, and then he goes into poetic writing. To go. Slopes of grassy mountains rise steep up from the narrow town of Gorman, north of L.A. on the route of the 5. 5 was a freeway out here. Clusters
Hmm.
of bush and spans of I can't talk tonight. Spring wildflowers in bloom. California poppy, lupin, paintbrush, fiddlebacks, blue, orange, and yellow arching across the slopes above. Afternoon angle to the sun. Gorman painted on a hillside water tower. At Carl's Jr. in Gorman getting coffee. I say to the truck driver just parked on the slant and walked in behind me, "Those things are huge. How the hell do you drive them?" He says, "They're really easy. Still, you have to find a place to park. He laughs. Yeah, you do. Heading north towards Tejon Pass, humming ant column vehicles, 8 lanes wide, curving through a gap in the vertical cowflank tan mountains, tops out of sight, sprinkled with spring flowers. Big rig parked by the water tower. Sun, cars, hills, coffee, all to go. Yeah, that that number 5 freeway in California is just miles and miles and miles of almost nothing, just flat nothing. Can kind of get to you driving on it. Okay. Oh, here's a poem by Melanie Green, who's Brenda's friend, but I'll just read one. Columbia River Gorge. The green and dark of the trees and mist, comfort of the seen and unseen, each fir calligraphy for ragged yearning. Hawk on the wind, blue rain, and the river is time. Hill blue, distant blue hill, a quiet sum. Caesar salad, salmon chowder, cheesecake. That sounds good. Heat, sweet cedar, sweet, yeah. Heat, sweet cedar, sweet sauna, sweating. The naked
That's a
be
tongue
clothed.
twister.
That was a tongue twister. What purse of fire do you carry? Tomorrow I'll be so tired, none of this will matter to me. Sword ferns, wren in the brush pile. Red single engine plane low through the valley of the shadow of now. The river is time. I remember. It matters. Lovely. She got chronic fatigue early in life. I had to live with all the bad things that come with that. Let's see, what else have I got here? Here's a Denise Levertoff eye mask. In this dark I rest, unready for the light which dawns day after day, eager to be shared. Black silk, shelter me. I need more of the night before I open eyes and heart to illumination. I must still grow in the dark like a root, not ready at all. Yeah, that's kind of cool. Never wrote a poem about trying to wake up in the morning, but that's a good way to say it. Here's one by some old Chinese guy climbing the Ling Ying Terrace and looking north. Mounting on high, I begin to realize the smallness of man's domain. Gazing into the distance, I begin to know the vanity of the carnal world. I turn my head and hurry home, back to the court and market, a single grain of rice falling in the great barn. That means. Here's one apparently written by an Eskimo poet. Magic words. In the very earliest time, when both people and animals lived on Earth, a person could become an animal if he wanted to, and an animal could become a human being. Sometimes they were people and sometimes animals, and there was no difference. All spoke the same language. That was a time when words were like magic. The human mind had mysterious powers, A word spoken by chance might have strange consequences. It would suddenly come alive, and what people wanted to happen could happen. All you had to do was to say it. Nobody could explain this. That's the way it was. Here's one by Nachman Bratslav, who was probably an old Jewish fella. From the Torah of the void, God, for mercy's sake, created the world to reveal mercy. If there were no world, on whom would mercy take pity? So, to show his mercy, he created the worlds from Aslu's peak to this earth's center. But as he wished to create, there was not a where. All was infinitely he. Be he blessed. The light he condensed sideways. Thus was space made, an empty void. In space days and measures came into being, so the world was created. This void was needed for the world's sake, so that it may be put into place. Don't strain to understand this void. It is a mystery not to be realized until the future is the now. Once there was light, much and powerful, holy light, and it was in vessels, too much light, too much power, and the vessels burst. When the vessels burst, the fragments of holiness took the form, becoming the outered sciences. So even of holiness, there is, what's that word, awful again? That's the second poem with that word in it. Offal. Just as there is sweat and hair and excrement, so holiness too has its awful. Well, so we had a poem about bird shit, and then we got a poem about holy shit. Actually, that should have been the title of the poem. Holy shit. Here's a little one by Rumi. Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. When the soul lies down in the grass, the world is too full to talk about. Ideas, language, even the phrase each other doesn't make any sense. And here's a little one by Lipo. The birds have vanished. The birds have vanished into the sky, and now the last cloud drains away. We sit together, the mountain and me, until only the mountain remains. Ooh. Oh wow, that was quick. We're already at 6:30. So it's time for a bit of Mary. Dogs. Over the wide field, the dark deer went running, 5 dogs screaming at his flanks, at his heels, my own 2 darlings among them, lunging and buckling with desire as they leaped for the throat, as they tried and tried again to bring him down. At the lake, the deer plunged. I could hear the green wind of his breath tearing, but the long legs never stopped till he clambered up the far shore. The dogs moaned and screeched. They flung themselves on the grass, panting and steaming. It took hours, but finally, in the half-drowned light in the silence of the summer evening, they woke from fitful naps. They stepped into their good natures toward us. Look into their eyes, bright as planets under the long lashes. Here is such happiness when you speak their names. Here is such unforced love. Here is such shyness and such courage. Here is a shining, rudimentary soul. Here is hope retching the world as it is. Here is the black, the red, The bottomless pool. Ooh,
Mm.
I wish I could write that way. At the shore, this morning, wind, that light-limbed dancer, was all over the sky, while ocean slapped up against the shore's black-beaked rocks. Row after row of waves, humped and fringed and exactly different from each other, and above them one white gull whirled slant and fast, then dipped its wings, turned in a soft and descending decision. Its leafy feet touched the pale water just beyond breakage of waves. It settled, shook itself open, its spoony beak cranked like a pump. Listen, here is the white and silky trumpeter of nothing. Here is the beautiful nothing, body of happy, meaningless fire, wildflower, shaking the heart. Hmm.
Mm.
All right. Well, that's fun. I'm glad we got to read. Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you, John.
And thank you, Glenda, obviously. Okay. Well, you two have a good week. Yeah. I shall see you.
Thanks everybody. Sorry I couldn't talk.
Yeah, that's fine. You're probably driving, huh?
I am.
Okay. I'm glad you came. It made enough for a quorum. Is that the right word?
Yep, that's the word.
Okay. Have a great week. See you
Good
next week.
night.
Yep.
See
Bye
you next
bye.
week. Bye.